All rise for the jury. All right, please be seated. Members of the jury, I understand you have a verdict. Members of the jury, I will now read the verdicts as they will appear in the permanent records of the 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota, County of Hennepin, District Court, 4th Judicial District. State of Minnesota Plaintiff versus Derek Michael Chauvin, Defendant. Verdict, Count 1. Court file number 27, CR 20-12646. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to Count 1, unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:44 p.m. Signed, juror foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 2. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 2, third-degree murder, perpetrating an eminently dangerous act, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Signed by jury foreperson, juror number 19. Same caption, verdict count 3. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter as to count 3, second-degree manslaughter, culpable negligence, creating an unreasonable risk, find the defendant guilty. This verdict agreed to this 20th day of April 2021 at 1:45 p.m. Jury foreperson 019. Members of the jury, I'm now going to ask you individually if these are your true and correct verdicts. Please respond yes or no. Juror number 2, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 19, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 27, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 44, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 52, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 55, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 79, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 85, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 89, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 91, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 92, are these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
Yes.
Members of the jury, I find that the verdicts as read reflect the will of the jury and will be filed accordingly. I have to thank you on behalf of the people of the state of Minnesota for not only jury service, but heavy-duty jury service. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to follow the deputy back into your usual room, and I will join you in a few minutes to answer questions and to advise you further. So, all rise for the jury. All right, be seated. With the guilty verdicts returned, we're going to have Blakely, you may file a written argument as to Blakely factors within 1 week. The court will issue findings on the Blakely factors, the factual findings, 1 week after that. We'll order a PSI immediately returnable in 4 weeks. And we will also have a briefing on, after you get the PSI, 6 weeks from now, and then 8 weeks from now, we will have sentencing. We'll get you the exact dates in a scheduling order. Is there a motion on behalf of the state?
Your Honor, the state would move to have the court revoke the defendant's bail and remand him into custody pending sentencing.
Bail is revoked, bond is discharged, and the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Hennepin County Sheriff. Anything further?
Oh, Your
All
Honor.
right, thank you. We're adjourned.
Guilty verdict. All 3 counts. Derek Chauvin put in handcuffs, in custody. Remember, he was out on bond throughout most of this. No longer a free man tonight. Now a convicted murderer. Derek Chauvin, a convicted murderer tonight. Now, there's different ways to look at what happened today and what happened during the course of this trial. Obviously, you saw the reaction from the public. That is one aspect of this story, and it's a big aspect of the story. But at Court TV, we also focus on the facts and the law. And that's what drives every case inside a courtroom. You present the facts to the jury, the judge instructs on the law, you make the arguments, and the jury has to figure it all out. And that's what happened. That's the way our system of justice works once you enter that criminal courtroom. And I said works because it does work. And it did work in this case. Derek Chauvin had the presumption of innocence. He was able to present his case. He had the opportunity to testify if he wanted to. Now that he is convicted, he'll have his opportunity to argue about what the sentence should be. The judge will hand that down. And then he has an opportunity to appeal all of this if something went wrong. There's another level of judges that will take a look at it. That's the way our system works. As for the victim, George Floyd, and his family, a sense of justice tonight for them. They got to see the system work. George Floyd is no longer alive, and the jury told us why. Because Derek Chauvin murdered him. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae, who joins us live from Minneapolis, who's been there throughout. There's a lot of places we could go right now on this discussion of what just happened, but let's start with the trial itself and where we are and how we got here and what this means in terms of the law and the facts and the procedure of what's going to take place with Derek Chauvin, okay? So he's convicted right now, Julie Janae. He's in custody. What is the next step in all of this, and what is he facing? Now, that's the first question I always get when someone's convicted. Well, what's he facing now? Well, what is he facing, and how will that determination be made?
So what happens next is there's going to be a pre-sentencing investigation, which will be handled and looking into the background, the details of this trial, and that will be delivered to the prosecution, to the court, so that they understand before going into sentencing exactly what they're dealing with and where the sentencing should fall. We have 8 weeks, the judge said, until this sentencing is going to happen. And there'll be what's called a Blakely hearing, and that's named for a case that has to do with aggravating factors. There are several aggravating factors in this case that the prosecution says applies in Derek Chauvin's case. And they include the fact that George Floyd was a vulnerable victim. He was handcuffed at the time. He was treated with cruelty, according to the prosecution. This was done in front of children, and there were multiple minors rather, who witnessed this. That's another aggravator under the law here in Minnesota. And also the fact that Derek Chauvin was abusing his power, his position of authority in committing this crime. So all of those things, the judge is going to hear the state's arguments and see if they have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that those apply. So if those aggravators apply, then this judge is actually going to be able to sentence Derek Chauvin harsher. As far as what he faces, we've been talking a lot about the maximum that he faces for each charge. For second-degree unintentional murder, it's 40 years. For third-degree murder, it's 25 years. And for manslaughter, it's 10 years. But there are sentencing guidelines here in Minnesota that adjust what a judge recommends as a sentence, and it's based on whether a person has a criminal background, which Derek Chauvin does not, and the severity of the crime. So as far as that top count, based on the guidelines, he would get 12 years as a sentence, and then 2/3 of that is what would be his sentence for behind bars. But of course, if the judge rules that there are aggravating factors, then he can depart from that and go up to the max of 40 years.
And the feeling I get as we watch the reaction of all this, these are live pictures taking place in downtown Minneapolis. You can see more and more people gathering tonight. Do prosecutors want 40 years here? Have they given an indication one way or the other?
We know they want an upward departure. That's why they filed that notice. They don't want the 12 years that are under the sentencing guidelines. They want something much harsher. We've reached out to them about what they can tell us about what they are going to recommend as a sentence, but we don't know that at this point, whether they're going to ask for the max or something that is less than the max. We just know they want more than what is prescribed by that sentencing guideline in Minnesota.
Julie Janae, I know you were outside in the midst of all of this. How would you describe what is happening in Minneapolis tonight and what you got to observe firsthand?
It's a celebration, Vinny, in the streets. It's what you can imagine following some kind of a sporting event, a major one. People really have this feeling of jubilation. It's a party that's going on out there right now. I could see people filling the streets. It was growing as I was out there and then coming back inside. But they are all chanting. They all feel, you can tell, encouraged about being together. We don't know what it would have looked like if there was a verdict that went the other way. But this is, to me, the culmination of a movement that has been happening since George Floyd's death. A lot of these people are likely the same people who were in the streets during the summer of 2020 demanding justice for George Floyd and now feeling that sense of victory in the chants that we are hearing and still seeing out in the streets.
All right, I want to bring our special guest into the conversation. Joining us on the phone from Orlando, Florida, America's judge, the judge that presided over the Casey Anthony murder trial, the Honorable Belvin Perry is with us. Also with us in Chicago, Illinois, the criminal defense attorney for R. Kelly, Steve Greenberg. Great to have you both here. Judge, I'll begin with you. This case ultimately is about Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, and there's a much larger meaning that's going on. But how do you look at it, Judge Perry? How do you see what happened today inside that courtroom in Hennepin County?
Jimmy, what I see that happened today was the first step in this long journey of justice. Over the last months and years, we've seen black men murdered by police along with black women. And this is a first major step for a jury to come back to find someone guilty. It's another major step in that we saw in this case the breaking of the code of silence. It's not often you will see a chief of police and other law enforcement individuals that will testify against a fellow officer. Hopefully this will lead to a serious review of the use of deadly force, be it by placing a knee on someone's neck or through the use of a firearm.
Steve Greenberg, last night you were on the program and you talked about great facts make great lawyers. And that really stuck with me and resonated with me as I thought more and more about what could happen in this case. And we all sort of agreed, hey, listen, the facts in this case were tough for the defense. But this was a prosecution team. I mean, 14 lawyers, lots of resources, expert after expert after expert, a huge investment by prosecutors in this case. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, do all prosecutions get the same attention from prosecutors? Because you're on the other side of all this, so you see it. What did you see in this case, and what do you see day to day in the world of criminal justice?
Well, what you saw in this case was fundamentally different than what you see normally. I think that what's going on here, Vinny, is that we're seeing sort of the merger of prosecutions and technology, not just in the courtroom, but in the evidence they have. Let's face it, if there had not been any videotape, we would not have seen a prosecution like this. We maybe would have seen a prosecution based on the witness statements, but then you would have seen the other officers, I'm certain, come to his defense and say that's not what happened, and those witnesses got it wrong. So while we're seeing this movement, and while we want to think that this case is a sea change and how they're looking at things, I think that the only thing that's going to reduce the incident of officers shooting minorities, black and brown, as people keep saying, is the advent of technology. We saw it in Chicago recently where an officer shot an unarmed young man, said he had a weapon, He had dropped the weapon just before being shot. But people can now judge how these decisions are being made. And so it won't be a situation anymore where an officer could simply say, I was in fear of my life, he raised a weapon, or I thought he had a weapon and here's what happened, or he was fighting me and here's what happened. So I think it's technology. That's the resource that's really going to change everything.
Julie Janae, for everyone involved in this case, I mean, there was an immense amount of resources put into all this by prosecutors. And we saw Eric Nelson, the defense attorney, by himself in that courtroom, seemingly worn out at some point. As you watched it firsthand and you had an opportunity, did it seem like it was Davey versus Goliath in this battle, in this particular case, where Derek Chauvin was facing these charges?
I think as far as the optics, that argument can be made because you had the one defense attorney on one side there with Derek Chauvin, and then you had 4 different prosecutors who were presenting for the state. But when it comes to the strength of the case and the way that they made their arguments and the passion that they had, and even seemingly the resources, because we know that the defense was able to bring in some very high power experts. I think as far as the quality of the representation on both sides, you didn't get a feel of David versus Goliath. I mean, Eric Nelson was great with his cross-examination of witnesses with a lot of bad facts, and you had the prosecution also great with cross-examination of their witnesses. So though the optics did make it seem that Chauvin did not have as much support, and he likely didn't, based on the fact that you had these attorneys that are with the state attorney's office, the attorney general's office rather, and then these private attorneys who did the work for free, some could argue that he had less representation than the state did. But overall, I think a quality amount of arguments on both sides for each. I don't think he didn't get a fair shake based on him only having the one attorney, because we know that Eric Nelson did have funding from the union and the federation that they are a part of.
And he fought a battle. He fought a battle inside the courtroom. And I think he said the 2 magic words, bad facts. It keeps coming back to that. And Steve Greenberg, that's going to be running around my head forever now.
Vinny,
go ahead.
Vinny, I feel like Chauvin's defense brought a water bucket to a forest fire. I think that the police union said we have this obligation to provide you with representation. We're going to do the bare minimum we can. And I've said this before, and he seems like a very nice man. They could have done better. They could have put on a better defense. I think he could have easily tried this down to one of the lesser counts than the most serious murder count, notwithstanding the video. But that's probably for a much longer discussion on a different show, different time slot.
We'll get there. We'll get there, Steve. All right. Julie Janae, we're going to check back with you at the top of the hour. Judge Belvin Perry's going to stay with us. Steve Greenberg's going to stay with us. We're going to talk more about some of the reaction, the bigger picture. And as we leave you, we'll take a look at the live pictures in Minneapolis tonight.
Kelly does a lot every day. She sits down when she needs to, because she's got the skills to do everything. And today is a rare thing.